Raise your horns high and let your spirit flow. It's the classic metal wrap-up show. Feel the rush, let the loudness grow. It's the classic metal wrap-up show.
The alcohol and the blow
and the
noise.
fucking jack. And nobody, it's not the fucking sound guy. It's the fucking vices. Let's just be clear about that.
And Don is older than Vince by 5 or 10 years. So
to your credit of what
Rob
you just
Halford,
said, you know, same thing.
is older than them all.
Right.
And he still has a voice.
He's killing it.
Yeah.
But he's been sober since 1990, or I mean, a long time.
90,
he's been sober.
I think it was after Turbo, right? So it might have been 88.
Yeah, between Turbo and Painkiller. It's a long time, and he doesn't smoke or drink, and so you can see that has helped his
Yeah, it was during Turbo.
Yeah. So it might have been even 86, 85. Yeah.
Yeah. So a long time sober, takes better care of himself. Also, as a vocalist, has always been, that's what Rob prides himself on, is his voice, and so he's always tried to take care of that. I think more than other people. And,
right.
But also, irregardless of any of that, to your point, the running around for anybody is going to win you. Like David Lee Roth, obviously in shape for his fucking age. But I believe that the reason that he struggles is because he's too busy flailing the fuck around instead of focusing on the vocal
doing the shuck and jive and the dance routine.
But did you see? I mean, with the M3, he wasn't doing that, and he was still exposed for being a rotten vocalist, right? So I mean,
there was a couple songs that were better, but they weren't good.
Right. He had a couple parts that, almost you could think he might be able to do it if he actually put a little more fucking focus on it.
Effort. Yes. Dedication, effort. This is what Don needed to do when he went to the whiskey to sing the song for Jack. Just put a little effort and dedication into knowing the words, Don. It would have been much better. Hey, Vince, just a little dedication and effort and stand in one place and getting the words out so we understand what you're saying and we don't get the instead of words. And that's what happens. And that's usually because if you watch, it always happens when he's running around. He's out of breath.
I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. Sammy Hagar vocally leaves David Lee Roth for dead.
Oh,
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
But just like Vince, Roth was never hired to be a singer. He was hired to be the front man.
Yeah.
He was supposed to entertain you. And he did do that. I mean, I don't blame those guys. Even that's like Piercy. Piercy to me doesn't really sing. He has this certain sound he can make with his voice. But he's Piercy. He's the front man. He's the guy dancing around the stage that you want to see at the front of that band. And so, like Don said, it's like, could you imagine there being a Rat with no Piercy? No,
there was.
It's his voice.
With Jizzy
Well,
Pearl.
I'm saying that in the day of the albums that
Josh
were being
Allen.
made. What I'm saying is go back to 1983 to 1989 and name one singer that sounded like Stephen Piercy. Oh, wait, there's no one that sings like Stephen Piercy. There's guys imitating, trying to be Stephen Piercy, but there has never been another guy who actually created this style of vocal that Piercy does.
Right.
It's not even singing. It's not whining. It's not yelling. It's not just vocalized. Like Lemmy doesn't sing. Lemmy would tell you he just vocalizes. He just talks into the microphone. So, everybody's different, but my thing about both Kiss and Cruise, I just wish they would just do like Crew. I will say at times does some things for the fans that are super cool that other bands don't do. That's why I like Metallica too. I think Lars, as much crap as people give him, he does do things sometimes for the fans that are cool that a band his size doesn't have to do. And
loving these, I'm loving these Record Store Day and the Shout at the Devil box set and the Feel Good box sets and all this stuff. Like, yep, give it to me.
I just like when we were mentioning Kiss.
Thank you, B&G. Thank you, B&G.
For releasing all the tidbits.
Yeah.
With Gene and Paul, I was going to say my another problem I have with them is right now is an opportunity for them to wrap up. They got a 50th anniversary thing going on at the Vegas thing. They could have been bringing in some extra people. did they need all the money from the Madison Square Garden final two shows, or could they cut Ace and Pete a little bit of loot and said, get on stage and do last four tunes with us or something? That's all I'm saying.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I think there's there, but again, for some reason, a guy like Gene, who's worth what, 350, $400 million, is still worried about the next penny. I don't know why. So
Right.
It's great. It's great. Did so, and I've got to say, when Karabi joined Crew, and I knew the first thing I did was go out and buy the Scream cassette.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I
Yeah.
heard the first thing I heard was Outlaw.
Outlaw.
Right?
See, with that, I mean, because
And in
when
2 seconds, I was like, "Yeah, this will work."
sure,
This,
I think what I had a jump start on the Scream because it had a couple of the guys from Racer X who I was a fan of, prior to that, and then they disbanded. And the Scream actually had Scott Travis in the band, but then he moved on, so they just had John and Bruce from Racer X, and then they got the drummer from Shark Island, and then got Karabi. But there's actually a second Scream record that got shelved too because that got completed. I think it was written, going into the Motley thing. They already had the songs, but it's got a different singer. I don't remember exactly who the singer was for that, but I don't think that.
they were gonna get that too. They were gonna get the Anywhere There's Electricity tour.
Oh yeah,
That
right.
that was part of the contractual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Scream would get the next Motley tour.
Right. Yeah.
what do you think
have you
about
heard that? Yeah.
The Scream.
Have you no have
Oh,
you
of
heard
that?
album? I've never heard it.
No. You know, a while back there were bits and pieces of the second Scream album on the Racer X website. You couldn't download it. You could just stream like bits and pieces, and it wasn't complete songs. It was like 3 minute, not 3 minute, 60-second chunks. So you could get
Yeah.
kind of a feel for what it was all about. But yeah, I don't think they even have a website anymore.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
so since you guys like Motley Crue and Kiss, what did you think of Union? Bruce
I like
Kulick
that.
and
I like
Robbie?
wait a minute. I'd almost like the second record a little more.
I was going to ask that question too. I thought that one had a little more edge to it myself, but
I've got those albums. I haven't really listened to them a great deal. I need to
Right.
go back.
Yeah.
it's an interesting kind of, little piece of it. There's little sections here that guitar wise remind me of something that he would have done in Kiss, and then there's vocally all that reminds me of the '94 album. So
Mm-hmm. Right.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another band that got lost in the shuffle when they
Sure.
both couldn't sort out that late '90s stuff that was going on.
Yeah. I have a bunch of their bootlegs. I mean, I have a shit ton of those. There is this'll Andrew will like this. The Cleopatra put out Live at the Galaxy. It was their live album, which is pretty good.
Power to the Music's on that.
Yeah, that's on there as well. Yep. Yeah. That was
Was that one of the 4 good albums that they've actually
probably
produced?
one of the 4. Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
That Jack Russell one's pretty good too.
The Jack Russell, yeah, for
Russell's-
sure.
Oh, that acoustic, yeah.
It
that's
was
a
the
good-
acoustic remake
Yeah.
of One Spittin'.
Yeah, One Spittin'.
Apparently, yeah, I don't, I've got all of the Great White stuff, and I've got Jack Russell's, I've got the For You solo album, and I got the
Mm-hmm.
Jack Russell's Great White solo album, but I haven't got those. Like, there's an Acoustic Bites thing,
Yeah, that one's a good
That's yeah.
and the second Zeppelin thing. I'm like, do I really want that?
I mean, you could
The
live without
acoustic
the
one's good.
Zeppelin ones. I mean, but that acoustic,
The acoustic
Bites is a
one-
good
That
That's
one.
good.
acoustic one, that's
It's
the one
worth
I'm
it.
talking about. It is good.
It's worth
It
picking
is
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got a copy with Jack's signature on it and Robbie Lochner too. So that should be worth some money somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
More for Robbie's signature, I think.
So
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I'm going to throw out a couple of news stories here that I think are interesting. I want to see what TJ and you guys think about this. So I don't know if Tim James is a Slayer fan, but Kerry King thinks that Slayer should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Does
Did you
Eddie
see
Trunk
that?
think? Does Ed Trunk think they should? Maybe he does. I don't know. What do you
How-
think?
Probably.
I mean, I think there's a definite influence. Isn't that the key thing? Is I don't think it's album sales, it's influence. I mean, Motorhead should be in there based on influence. They influenced all the thrash bands.
Yeah.
I guess by definition, yes. But for me, I feel like all these bands need to have their own spot. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame doesn't really represent rock or metal in any way. It represents R&B and the Supremes and the
it's definitely
Temptations and all
the
this stuff that I
it's-
understand and the foundation of music was important.
Mhm.
But to me, Slayer should not be like, oh, hey, this year we're gonna induct. I'm just throwing somebody out there. I don't know if he's in or not. I'm sure he is, but we're gonna induct Smokey Robinson, and now next up Slayer.
Yeah, right.
What a combination.
Yeah.
So that's where in my mind, honestly, what I wanted to say was, Carrie, was, do you think Jeff Hanneman would give a shit about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
No.
No.
He probably wouldn't even fucking show up, bro. Even if they inducted him, he would not show up to that. So to me, as a Slayer fan, I'm not waiting for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to call Carrie and be like, hey, we're going to validate you guys. So that was an odd thing. Again, a Kerry King statement that just makes me go, why would you even think about that?
I don't think they should get in there before Iron Maiden.
Oh,
for
sure.
example.
Yeah.
Or
Iron Maiden needs to be in there.
Or
now.
before Megadeth.
or Styx aren't even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah.
There's like,
Or even
Love-
Coverdale with
Lover-
Whitesnake.
Lover
Solo
Boy.
is not in there.
Lover Boy should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
Like these bands have sold a lot of records, man. A lot of
Motley
records.
Crue.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if you're going with record sales and these things, if you put Guns N' Roses in there, why would you not put Motley Crue in there?
Right.
That's my question. So, anyways, I thought that was interesting. Obviously, I think the CMS covered last night Sean Kinney of Alice in Chains going down with some health problems, and that's my favorite Seattle band of all time. So, hell of a, I love Alice in Chains. Yes.
No, I've
I
been
mean,
seeing them.
Never mind.
Lane Stevens.
I agree. I mean, I think in the Northwest, that was one of my favorite. I saw them early on, still when they were a glam band, But yeah, what a fucking great band, Alice in Chains.
As soon as Facelift hit my hands as a kid, I was like, "What is up with this?"
The Clash of Titans tour, they were the opening band, so for us it was a big deal to see them open, for Anthrax, Slayer, and Megadeth. On that tour, and
they held their own surprisingly.
You knew shit was already going sideways with that band when they started Man in the Box, and Jerry Cantrell wound up singing the first couple minutes because Lane Stanley was
Stevens.
Lane Staley comes stumbling onto the stage and right in the mic stand, and he didn't even budge. So I'm like, oh boy, this isn't good. So, but anyway, Kidney had this medical thing. Sounds like.
Yeah, sounds like he's down. I'm just for that scene. He was a wonderful, amazing drummer. Actually, in my opinion, if you actually listen to the drum beats, some of those songs are pretty intricate. So, anyways, want that guy to get well. What do you guys think about this George Lynch? No more Lynch mob, but I'm coming back as the mob.
That's
I think it's
lame.
fucking stupid, but I love George.
I like
Another guy
George, but this is
another guy who's
stupid.
giving you the farewell tour, the old shuck and jive farewell routine.
And
He's
what I
making you
don't
buy tickets.
understand here, and again, I'm not a fan of that singer, that kid that he had singing, because I saw him twice on that 23 cruise. But
Yeah.
I was watching some video. I see what you're saying. He does seem really mechanical in what he's.
Did you know
It's
what that
not
was
that
like?
it's
That
bad,
experience?
it's that he doesn't have soul behind it.
Yeah.
That was almost kind of like trying a gay experience once and then going back a second time to make sure you didn't like it. That's what that's what it was watching that performance. It just was not good. The band sounded great. George sounded great. Their bass player is awesome. They had Jimmy DeAnda on drums, who's a fucking monster.
Yep.
But the singer ruined it. It just not a fan.
Yeah, and again, just a couple months ago on the cruise, George said on the stage that the reason why Lynch Mob was, he was done with this and taking and putting it to bed, and Jimmy DeAnda's moving on, and that's my drummer for that. And I realize he's had other drummers, but he was using that as his excuse to kind of wrap this up with a bow. And then it just seems odd to be like within 2 months, 3 months, I'm back with the mob.
Back with the mob.
Okay.
Henry, if you remember, he already tried to rebrand, and it was when the Lynch Mob was a bad thing, and he goes, "Whoa, I don't want to give people the wrong idea, so it's going to be the Electric Freedom, right?
Freedom, yeah.
And then when that didn't sell tickets, then he went back to Lynch Mob. So I'm guessing he's probably Lynch Mob will be back.
Again, get Evil as your manager, and I'm just going to say, make it George Lynch and Friends, and that covers the whole waterfront.
And
George,
get Andrew
Freeman
really to sing.
No one cares as long as George is there, right? I mean, that's the name that needs to be on the marquee is George Lynch. So
sure.
I don't think the mob is necessarily how many people are in line strictly to see the mob.
You do recall that was Kulik's band. That you referred to them as the mob, with members of Bruce's band.
Yeah, members of yeah.
So
that was also Queensryche's original name, and they had to change it on the label.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something a bit controversial here. And
this is the place to do it, by the way.
I'm not trying to be controversial. I just struggle with this a little bit now. Don't get me wrong. George Lynch, and I know, that when you were having the Dokken discussion, that our wonderful lady friend from the CMS, she loves George Lynch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and I'm not saying that George Lynch, people like George Lynch and Warren DeMartini aren't extremely skilled guitar players. They're absolutely skilled guitar players and brilliant. And I've got all the Rat records. I've got all of the Dokken records. I don't have any Lynch Mob records or any George Lynch solo stuff. But you see, I think there's levels, right? You've got Edward Van Halen, right? Who I think just after Hendrix, that guy revolutionized everything, right? Tony Iommi revolutionized everything. Brian May revolutionized everything. These types of guys, they sounded like Angus Young. I can pick Angus Young out. They have identifiable sound that is you couldn't miss it, right? And I kind of do feel that as brilliant as people like, and I love Winger, I could talk to you about Winger all day, but people like Red Beach, Warren DeMartini, George Lynch, I don't really feel, as skilled as they are and as great as they are, they're not really identifiable to me. Like, I listen to a solo and go, like, I listen to Rat and I know the song, but You know what I'm saying? Am I missing something?
I think it's just a matter of taste.
Right.
I mean, me personally, if I hear George Lynch, I know exactly that it's George. You could like not show me any visuals, just put the thing on my ears, and I'll tell you when it's George Lynch and when it's not. But that's me. I'm a George Lynch fan, and if for '80s guitar players, he's in my top 5. So,
Yeah, that's cool.
but I see what you're saying. As far as what I think George suffers from, for me personally, is I don't think he's a great songwriter. I think he's a riff writer. I think he's a great soloist. He needs a Don Dokken or someone else to put words and melody and organize.
He needs a Jeff Pilson.
A Jeff
Jeff maybe or whoever, someone behind the scenes to help put it together in a way. I'm guessing with the I love that first Lynch Mob album, but in my mind I'm thinking Oni Logan wrote these lyrics and probably helped shape how these songs are being formed based upon what he's singing. So, but George dilutes himself. He just releases too much crap, dude. There's too much shit out there that's not good. That's just like him playing guitar for $50 for somebody. It's like Red Rain. No offense to Red Rain, but clearly for a couple $100, he's playing a guitar solo for you. So I don't think that does him any favors. But I do hear what you're saying. I do believe there's like a tier level there, and obviously, I mean, I'm with you. I think Hendrix is the greatest guitar player of all time. If you said Evil, who is your other top 5? I'd put Blackmore in there and Eddie Van Halen right there. And Tony Iommi's right in there. And, so there's like kind of that second tier down where I say, this is where Lynch and Steve Vai and these kind of guys exist for me. But, they're not. Oh, I'm going to say is George wrote some iconic riffs that Dokken helped shape into things that we all know as those Dokken songs. But if you took him out and put him on his own, it doesn't sound exactly like Dokken, and he doesn't form the same type of overall song structures without Don, Jeff, and Mick helping him round it out.
Do you think the problem is that perhaps both George and Don have big egos, and they won't admit the strengths in the other that are, like Don's got weaknesses and George has got weaknesses, but they've both got strengths in there. They could never. I mean, from every interview that I've ever heard from Don Dokken, he's just come across as a really nice guy, to be honest. I don't know. Do you think?
I think he is a nice person. I think sometimes he has revisionist history. I think in his old age, he thinks that he was everything to Dokken, and without George and Mick and Jeff, it just never. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Go listen to Race the Slate, listen to the newer albums, and tell me what you think. If are they on the? I just don't think. Even if you took out the era or this or the album artwork or whatever, just listen to the music. It's just not the same as it was when it had those extra voices of Jeff and Mick singing and George's guitar playing. So, and I think both of them, egotist. Here's the interesting thing about the way this works in bands. You have bands like that who can't seem to ever get on the same page. They're all, like Pilson said, even at their peak of their powers on that tour, they were trying to strangle each other backstage. And not that they don't have their problems, but then you got a band like Metallica where, do you think Lars? I mean, it seems like there's like an unagreed truce between Kirk and Lars and James that whatever their deficiencies are, they'll just work together as a team to be the best that those three guys can be, and you don't hear them slagging each. Well, you saw that one movie, Some Kind of Monster, where they put it all out there. But you don't, generally speaking, of that point, you didn't hear them slagging each other. They weren't on the, fuck that guy and this guy. And so I don't know. There's just certain guys who I think realize that they're more valuable as the team, and we're going to make more money this way. And we may not always get along. And we're not the best lead guitar player. You're not the best drummer, Lars, but you do what Metallica needs you to do just fine. And when you're playing with Kirk and James, there's a sound there that they only make when those three guys are jamming together. So I think it's sad that a band like Dokken couldn't find a way to just say, hey, manager, separate us, but keep us together. Separate us on tour, but keep us together. Keep us making the music,
Jason Newsted should have never been pretty much ousted from that band.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they were venting frustration at him, and that, they always had that unwritten rule that you couldn't go outside Metallica. And when he did the Echo Brain, he broke that rule. And whether people like that or not, that's not even a Lars Ulrich rule. It's James who doesn't want people doing things outside of Metallica. That's been a James idea all along.
I think he's acknowledged now that was wrong. I think James.
Yeah. And he was lost. If you watch the movie, he's lost an alcohol addiction, man. He's still battling the booze. He was a long time, and for all those guys after losing Cliff, could you blame them? I probably would have been lost in a bottle for 10 years myself. So it wasn't just like your bass player died. Your bass player died in a horrific car accident in front of your own eyes. That's a whole different level of
fucking brutal.
Yeah. So,
and the other question I have for you guys, and I've been thinking about this a lot. And this relates to everything we've been talking about today with these bands and with Motley Crue, in my case. Do you think that these bands to us, and you're going to think this is weird a bit, but are they like comfort musical food to us? In that if there's albums if we love a band, we will look at them favorably always.
Absolutely. And the proof in that is what we just did, because as I went through this, I was thinking, if you said to me right now, pay $150 to go see Motley Crue on the next stadium tour. Me personally, I'm not going to do that. I've already seen them when I thought they were better and younger, and that's nothing, not a knock on them now. They can do what they want to do. And I watch a video here or there just to keep up to date. But what they do for me is the nostalgia, man. So I can go back when I put on, because I had not listened to Feelgood all the way through in a long time. And when I put Feelgood through all the way, track to track, while I was driving around at work the other night, it hit me. This album came out at a certain time in my life where I don't know the date that it was released. I'd have to look at the exact date that Feelgood was released.
August 28, 1999.
I was going to say, it seemed to remind it was the end of summer. And I remember the end of that summer, I got this cassette in my hands. It didn't leave my Walkman, man. I mean, I was on road trips with my family. They're like, take your headphones off. I'm listening to Motley Crue, man. Fuck you, So to hear Sticky Sweet, I was saying earlier, that riff just totally brought back that summer, that end of summer, those memories of being that age and that golden age of what that sounded like. And it was so new and different. And I felt like I was playing something new and hip that no one had, because it'd only been out a couple days or a couple weeks. And so
that record was all I listened to for a year. Like other albums would come out and I'd play them and I'd go, nah, it's not as good as Feelgood.
Yeah, and it's a big album when, as a kid growing up on a street and outside Sacramento, California at the time, there was kids older than me by a few years and younger than me, and I'd get out of school and I would hear down the street, someone had it at full blast. Every other couple doors, there was a guy cranking Feelgood, dude. So it was not just for me. There was a lot of dudes in that era who hit that album hit, and it was just like, it was the right time. Krug had the right look, the right sound, the right everything when they dropped that album.
And one more question? Do you guys believe this talk on the internet that everything Motley Crue do is on tracks now? And I've told you how I did the audio comparison with one gig and then the gig that I was at, because I just record the audio on my phone. I don't video when I'm at shows, I just record the audio. And it was Shout at the Devil. And Vince was phrase for phrase exactly the same. But is that to say that Nicky's never played bass and that Tommy's never, you see all this talk. Vince Neil's never sung live. Tommy's never played drums. Nicky's never played bass on the albums. What do you guys think?
I can for sure say that when I saw them on the Swine and Canocti and that Greatest Hits there, they were playing. It was live. I mentioned to them there was one opportunity I had where I reached up at the Warfield. I'm a big guy. I'm almost 6'5". I reached up and grabbed Nicky's bass and it made a sound on that time. It plugged it. It was plugged in. He was obviously doing it. It was a live bass guitar. So I think somewhere in there, particularly now in the last 5 or 10 years for stadiums, for those big football, soccer size stadiums, they're using a click track to keep Tommy in time. They're augmenting with some vocal tracks and some extras to help keep them, sounding as full as they need to be. But as Ruben pointed out on the Feelgood tour, they were using some tracks because Mick's playing a slide guitar and you're still hearing electric guitar rhythm in the background on the Feelgood tour. So there was a track there.
I was watching some footage last night, and I've seen a lot of Motley Crue footage, and I've never seen this footage. If you remember on the Generation Swine tour, there was an MTV news report that came from Boston. They filmed it in Boston. They were talking about the tour stuff. And I've never seen this footage, but it was 23 minutes or half an hour of the Swine listening party from Boston, filmed by MTV, but without all the interviews and stuff, right? And I've never seen this footage. I was freaking out, going, "This is pro shot Generation Swine footage. Oh my god!" And yeah, and Mick, they were playing Glitter, right? And Mick's playing an acoustic guitar, and the solo comes. Now I know you can plug the acoustic in and all that,
right?
But the solo comes, and he's playing the solo, and there's no way that sound that he had coming out of that acoustic guitar during that solo sounded like an acoustic guitar. It wasn't an acoustic guitar coming out during that solo. There must have been some effect, some pedal or something.
Extra.
I was just looking, an acoustic guitar doesn't sound like that ever.
And for the record, Vince's hair was never pink; it was fuchsia, right, Andrew? Fuchsia was his favorite color.
That's what it is. Oh.
So, anyways, but at this point in time, let's be real. I mean, the last time I saw Def Leppard, there was some tracks to help some of those choruses and some of those things. So, I mean, are we gonna? If I was to say only give me bands that play 100% live, we're gonna get down to a small handful of bands out there doing that. I mean, it's usually the lower level bands, not the bands that are on the stadium level. The stadium level bands are.
Why do you think that is? I mean, and Eddie Trunk talks about this. Do you think
it's ego and vulnerability. They don't, when they get on that level of a stage, they don't want to sound any less voluminous than the band before them or after them. And if they're the headliner band, then they want to be louder than the band before them. And when they get to that level, they all feel like if it was just Mick and just Tommy and just Nikki and just Vince singing, this is going to sound empty and hollow in this big, gigantic place. So how do we fill that sound and make it look and sound like an album? And the best way to do that is to go to Pro Tools and put a couple tracks on there.
Paul still sounded awful on the End of the Road tour.
Yeah.
There's no hell when your voice is roasted. There's almost no. I mean, and again, the very beginning of that, there is video where you can clearly see Paul's not on the mic and there's a vocal track coming through. So he clearly had full vocal tracks helping him at that point in time. So I think that heat that they got on the internet, though, made him pull that back quite a bit and say, let me sing once in a while here, dude, because they're catching on that I'm completely faking it.
Yeah.
And so that's why to this day, again, Evil's old school, man. I like my bands live. I'd rather go see Suicidal Tendencies and Mike Muir and all the warts and all, and they're going to play sloppy and get all live with it and get loud and just get crazy with it. I like bands like that. And the more I see, I think there's more and more, there's a kind of a line now. We as musicians and fans can tell this band is doing it this way and this band is doing it that way. So, and there's no right or wrong. If you're Eddie Trunk, you don't want to hear any of it. Apparently he hates the tracks, but if he really hated the tracks, he'd have to really go down the list of bands he's emceeing for and start crossing some off because some of them are using tracks, Ed.
I mean, when I do my live gigs, like I play solo keyboard and sing, right? When I do my live gigs, I've got. Do you guys know what MIDI files are?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So I use MIDI files when I'm playing my live gigs
Hmm.
because I like a big sound. I
Hmm.
like a big sound. I can sit there and just play acoustic piano, but and I've done that on occasion, but I like to sound big, right?
Hmm.
So I have MIDI files that I use with the covers that I do, and I use the MIDI files, but I'm playing the keyboards, I'm playing the piano on top, and I'm singing, you know. And there are some people that like that, and I don't kind of understand. There's this whole thing when you go and see. I don't know if it's like this for you guys in America, but now every gig that I see with a solo artist in the corner playing a gig, like a 3 or 4 hour gig, they're all acoustic guitar players, all of them. And that's all you get. And it just drives me insane. Like acoustic, don't get me wrong, acoustic guitar players are great, but every every solo act you see is doing this. And to me, it's just lifeless. Does it?
It's that's a very I mean, I can't, not so much I think in our hard rock genres, but
Mhm.
as a musician with my own band off to the side, I have noticed, and I've been playing with my band for almost 30 years, and we've always just done electrified blues rock. Cream, Allman Brothers, The Doors. We jam covers, originals. We just throw them all in a pot and play live. There's no tracks. We just jam. But what I have noticed in those years is when I first came in, it was grunge and alternative. And since my band wasn't that, we weren't going to get a record deal. We couldn't be popular. Girls didn't like us. We didn't have the black hair and the baggy pants and the chains and all the shit they wanted. And then later, some of those bands evolved, and somewhere in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, a lot of them grew dreadlocks and all of a sudden became Rasta type guys and we're going to reggae and all this stuff. I have seen some of those very same guys now 15 years later with a cowboy hat and a belt buckle and acoustic guitar doing Americana. And I'm like, dude, 15 years ago, you were Bob Marley. How the fuck did you all of a sudden turn into fucking, Ventura Highway or whatever? That's what it sounds like they're doing to me.
Mhm.
And so it's a trend thing, and some of the younger people go that way, and some musicians are always trying to stay current with whatever they think that's going to be. And then there's guys like me who I'm old school. I just want to play blues rock. I prefer to hear Eric Clapton and Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker. Thanks, they played real instruments. I'm good. So
I
that's just
I
me.
think it's the whole like everybody wants to be Ed Sheeran.
Mm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like everybody, and that's Ed Sheeran is awesome. I love him. I think he's a great songwriter.
Got some good
But
songs, but yeah.
everybody wants to, like everybody, and I'd be saying the same thing if it was all keyboard players. Like everybody.
Mhm.
Wow.
And that's why I think, there are going to be people who are going to have success with that, with doing that. And then there's a lot of people who, quite frankly, are going to be more successful just staying in their lane, staying
Yeah.
true to what they do. This is why I always love the Allman Brothers. Name an album or a live show where the Allman Brothers were having tracks. It never happened. They played their instruments every single night live.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And sometimes for 3 or 4 hours compared to these other bands who can struggle to get an hour and 20 minutes. The Allman Brothers up there for 3 hours playing.
Mhm.
So those kind, or even Deep Purple. Deep Purple never used
Mhm.
tracks in the 70s and 80s. Man, they were live. They were Richie Blackmore's going to get there and play guitar into an amplifier live in front of your face, and that's the way it should be, in my opinion. I just
Yeah.
don't. Somewhere in there, guys became more hooked on the googly goos and the technology and trying to make that compensate for what they lacked in pure talent. And a guy like Dickie Betts, you give him a gold top Les Paul and a Marshall amplifier, he don't need a pedal, he don't need a track, he don't need nobody. He's going to play beautiful notes out of the guitar. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and honestly, that's what I was going to say. For Motley Crue, bringing it back to it, Mick Mars is a hell of a blues guitar player, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to them riffs, and I don't care. Nicky in his day, he held his own on the bass. There's some songs there where it requires that driving Nicky bass line to make. I don't care who played it when, where. When I saw him on stage, he was playing the bass guitar. So,
yeah. Listen to. I can't believe I'm having to look this up.
Oh, and I should say, so we all know, the true musician in Motley Crue is Tommy Lee, is a fucking beast on them drums. I mean, he is just, there's not a lot of drummers out there who can play like that dude can play.
And man, I'm sorry. I've seen it. I saw it with my own eyes. Like, I challenge any drummer, I don't care who you are, to play Upside Down.
I thought he was going to say he challenged any drummer to steer a boat with their cock.
Very few could do that too.
No, man. But I have seen footage. Apparently he got that.
We all saw the footage. We were all watching.
No.
Chris Aiken he wore the tape out going back and forth.
I've never watched that, honestly. I
think you're
missing
be
out,
fine.
my friend.
You'll be fine.
No, you're missing out. The boat ride is glorious. I'm telling you.
The boat ride.
The song I was thinking of was "Bittersweet" from Quaternary.
Oh yeah, that's fucking awesome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mick's unreal. You know.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we're.
Yeah, I think as we wrap up though, Tim, you gotta plug your website. That way, folks can go on there and check out your tunes.
Where do they find
see
your
what
music?
you're doing and all that stuff.
Which, by the way, I had heard Solidify a while back, but Tim had made very clear he's got new stuff that he just recently dropped that I had to find because I wasn't aware that was out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, as I say this, I am extremely grateful and I'm humbled. And look, again, I'm going to state this for the record. I'm still learning about production. I'm still learning about mixing. I'm learning, right? I generally, before I release, I'll talk about my brand new, well, it's not the record I released in September, but, you know, generally, I can't afford to go to a studio and get some, like people say to me, with Solidify, for example, people say to me, why didn't you go to 301 Studios or Sony Studios in Sydney and get them to mix it? Why didn't you go, you know, get somebody to help you with this stuff? And my simple response to that is, I would love to do that. I would love to do that, but I can't afford it.
Yeah. Are they writing the check? That's my question. You paying for it?
Like, well, you know, and I can hear, you know, some production things in Solidify that all I can say is that with all of my records, with all 9 of them, all I can do is do the very, very best I can at that time. And what I want people to hear when they're listening to these songs is not even necessarily me singing them, because the reason I put my songs out is because I don't want it, for a couple of reasons. For those of you that may not know, I've got cerebral palsy, right? So I work with the Cerebral Palsy Alliance, and cerebral palsy is like all motor skill and stuff. And I used to say to my dad, well, you know, I had keyboard lessons and everything, and, you know, I can play and I play gigs and it's fine. But I used to say to my dad, how come I can't play piano as fast as Billy Joel? And my dad would say, well, you know, Billy Joel doesn't have motor skill stuff, you know, but I play all my keyboard parts and I do that, and you know, and I'm as I said, I'm constantly trying to push and do my lessons and get better and better and better because I refuse to quit and I refuse to give up. So you know, but I do not actually want to be an artist, like in terms of singing my own material at all. I want to be my goal is not to be as, you know, plus I'm 52, but my goal is not to be a pop star. I want to be a songwriter. I want to be a professional songwriter that writes for the Keith Urbans, and that's my goal. I love songwriting more than breathing, and that you can do at any age. You know, you can be 80 years old and still writing songs. But what's happened? I went to a place in Australia, in Sydney, called the Australian Institute of Music, and in 2015, because the whole industry was changing. Everybody knew that was changing to Spotify and streaming and downloading, and everything was changing. And no one, you know, Joe Bloggs wasn't buying CDs anymore in his car, right? Because they stopped making CD players for cars, you know. So I was like, how am I going to survive? How am I going to do what I do if nobody's buying my records anymore, because nobody's buying anybody's records anymore, really. So I needed to go to a place where I could get more mentoring and more coaching. So I went to the Australian Institute of Music and got a diploma and a bachelor's degree in composition and production. And
Awesome.
I was, you know, some of my teachers were like the co-manager of In Excess. You know, this place was like a music industry hotbed. And I went there and I learned everything I possibly could. I did every songwriting um, um, class that I could do. You know, before I even went there, I'd released 4 records. But the point is that now what's happened, it's a miracle, is one of my songwriting, one of my composition teachers. Now you guys aren't going to know who this guy is, but please look him up because he's an Australian singer-songwriter. You wouldn't have heard of him, but in Australia we have. He's one of my comp teachers. His best friend was an ARIA award-winning singer-songwriter. And for those of you that don't know, ARIA awards are like the Australian Grammy Awards, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This guy, his name is Rick Price, right? He has had gold and platinum records in Australia. He has had hit songs in Australia. He happened to be my composition teacher's best friend. And he said, I'm going to introduce you to Rick. Now, the ironic thing with all this is that in 1996, I did a gig opening up for Rick Price at one of the clubs in Canberra, right, that I got through a booking agent. And Rick said to the audience that night, he goes, that guy, Tim, he said, he is going to be a really, really good songwriter one day. Fast forward 28, 29 years later, we're working together. We've become best friends. I'm the only student that my teacher has ever sent Rick from the Australian Institute of Music, because he's like my composition teacher was like, you really want to do this, don't you? And I said, damn straight, right? So now he's been coaching and mentoring me. I've got proper management. Rick's trying to help me get a publishing deal. Rick is an Australian, but he spends 9 months of the year in Nashville, right? He this song, That's What Love Can Do, right? He works with the creme de la creme guys in Nashville. This song that we wrote this song together called That's What Love Can Do. Garth Brooks and Willie Nelson's bass player played bass on this. Sheryl Crow's drummer played drums on it. Like, it's a miracle, right? It's just like God's going, here you go, you know, and please go and listen to this song. And because, well, I'll let you guys judge it. I won't try to oversell it.
Okay.
But basically, Rick's changed my life. And Rick is like, you can write, you can absolutely write, and I want to help you in any way I possibly can. And, you know, we're working on trying to get funding at the moment to do another record together, because Rick's fine, right? Our relationship's fine. But, you know, Sheryl Crow's drummer is not going to come and play drums for free. And, you know, these are serious session guys, right? So we're working on a bunch of stuff. But I mean, when Chris heard this song, he couldn't believe it. Like, comparing it to Solidify, he was like, he said, Tim, this is a hit. Like, the guy, you know, and you know how cynical those guys are, right? They've given me a hard time before, and that's fine. That's who they are. That's fine. You know, I'm friends with them. That's the way it goes. But they're like, no, we can't say anything bad about this. You know.
Well, make sure you give everybody your website, or how do you want them to find it?
If you look up TJ James on any of the streaming services, I'm there. The song's called That's What Love Can Do. tjjames.com.au. Yep. On Facebook as TJ James Music. And yeah, we're working on a bunch of stuff.
Nice.
So
awesome.
You know, it's taken me 31 years to get to this point. But this is what I do. I just don't want to give up.
Well, music is not a destination, my friend. It's a journey, and there's no timetable on that journey. And for songwriting, you're absolutely right. You could be 75 years old writing a hit song for a 20-year-old, and you know it's going to pay you well. That's the hidden secret that everybody needs in a band is good songwriting. People like Desmond Child, look how much money that guy's made writing songs for people. I mean,
guys like that, and Diane Warren. And Holly Knight, I'm sure you guys know who all of these.
Yeah.
These guys are my heroes, right?
Yeah.
And you know, nobody like Joe Public, you know, nobody knows who Desmond Child is.
But they should. There's about 20 songs you can sing it off the radio that he wrote.
I know, but the point is, like you don't have to be famous to be successful. These guys are a name on a credit. You know,
but when your name's on the credit for I Was Made for Loving You.
Damn straight.
You're gonna get some extra some buckolos. You get some checks in the mail that you like cashing, I'm sure. Right. So
and Gene can hate that song all he wants.
Right.
You know, but I make no bones about what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a commercially successful pop rock chorus songwriter.
Yeah,
cool.
Well, right on, man. Keep it up.
No,
keep doing what you're doing, and everybody out there, go check them out. I found them right on YouTube Music. I just put it in there. It pops right up. So
make sure you throw a link in our description when you post.
We'll get a link on there. but
Absolutely.
fucking awesome. See, we wound up chatting with him for almost 3 fucking hours.
3 hours.
And
Thank
you
you.
know what that means, Tim? We're gonna have to drag you back into some Kiss discussion of some
Yes,
sort
at
down
some
the
point in
way.
time. Yeah.
So we'll do
Can I
that.
just say what an honor it's been that you guys have actually had me on your show? Like, I really appreciate it.
Nice.
Hey, no, anytime, man. And you know,
I
we all
would
thought,
say the honor is for us, sir. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
No, yeah,
yeah,
and
because
I.
you know,
Oh, go ahead.
some of us have always wanted you to have a little more mic
Sure.
time on the CMS, and this was an opportunity for us to give it to you.
Right.
Yeah. And
So
look, I know, like, I've been goofy on the CMS before, you know, and I
Oh,
know
when you
that.
were when you were in McDonald's though, and you were
That
yelling at
was
the
some classic shit. That was funny.
yeah, that was awesome.
that was
Oh,
classic.
that's cool. Yeah.
So
So I think we'll add the website in the description, Tim, and then we'll get you a link, and yeah, then you can share it. What the hell? This was good
yeah,
time. So
absolutely.
Have you guys heard the tune?
Yeah, I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Absolutely.
now, tell me what your now. You can hate it. I want you to tell me your honest opinion of what you thought.
I actually didn't hate it. I really liked it. I was humming it later, and I a lot like because I did not realize you had dropped that until Aiken was talking about it, and about that time I had listened to it, and um, I guess what I didn't realize is I for some reason I was thinking that was on Solidify, but it was not. And so, but when I actually went back and A and B'd some of the tracks on Solidify to that song, I can see exactly what you're saying. You grew as a songwriter, you grew in your production value, you grew with who you were collaborating with, and I was with Aiken. I was like, dude, he needs to just get this song on the right person's hands, and it might be on somebody's album.
Right.
Yeah, well, see, you know, and I'm working on new material on my own as well. Like there'll be, you know, I, I don't want to let the grass grow. You know, like I'm working on my own next record, and I'm working on doing more with Rick. So,
Right on.
Nice. Thanks.
Well, when you get some more of that stuff done and you want to debut it or you want people
Cool.
to, talk about it and get some advertising out there for it, we'll always have you on for
Right.
a conversation. And I'm with Ruben. I think at some point in time, we're going to have to do a Kiss album to album. Yeah. We're going to have to something, take a couple of Kiss albums and have you jump on with us.
Right.
what would you
Yeah.
do? What albums would we do?
Well, I had once thrown this out there just because it's a little bit of an oddball. A lot of the ones we've been doing have been, popular album versus popular album, or like when we did the doc and we did when George and went with Lynch Mob versus Dawn's, which the first,
Yeah,
I guess you
yeah.
would say a solo album. Yeah. What I was suggesting to them was I think we should compare, because this is just me. I think we should compare Vinnie Vincent's first Invasion album against Animalize, because when Vinny left Kiss, Animalize is the first album without his imprint on it, and I personally think the Invasion album might be better than Animalize, and that's a hot take for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some of those Fiend songs on that record are bad, man.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, but Murder in High Heels is just terrible.
Oh.
He had a period there where he just really just put anything on the
Burn,
machine.
bitch, burn. I've
Yeah.
said before, I'm going to put my log in your fireplace. Maybe one of the worst lyrics of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
We'll figure.
We'll talk about. There's other. We could do some Kiss classic albums. We could
Right.
do a Revenge versus a makeup album. The whatever. Yeah, we got a lot. The Kiss has so many albums. We got a lot of options. So.
Right.
I think Lick It Up is an absolute stunner of a record.
Right.
It's very underrated in my opinion as well. Track to track, there's only one or two songs on there I usually hit skip. There's a lot on there I like. Saints
Yeah.
and Sinner,
Right.
1 in a Million,
I,
or a million to
Yeah.
one.
Probably
Good.
you guys probably did this, but I bought Killers, and actually I got given Killers for my birthday, but I begged and begged and begged for it. But I got Killers, and I bought like Music from the Elder when it came, Music from the Elder when it came out. That was my first Kiss record that I bought as a new release, was Music from the Elder.
Right.
And yeah, I bought Creatures on vinyl when it came out. I bought Hotter Than Hell on the same day. But yeah, all those records. But Lick It Up blew my mind when that record came out. That was
Nice.
I heard Paul Stanley singing on that record, and I was like, oh my God. Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
It's good stuff.
We'll revisit
thank you.
that
Yes,
down the way.
absolutely.
But, yeah.
No
Thanks so
worries.
much, Tim. It was awesome. It was a good time.
Yes. Thank you for doing this, brother.
No problem. Any time I can help you guys for whatever reason, let me know.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, man.
Yep.
All right, brother. Peace.
Bye.
Right.
See you soon.
Bye, kids.
All right. Okay, you guys. All right, Tim. Thanks so
Good job,
much.
man. Yeah,
Yes.
dude. That was awesome.
No worries.
All right.
It's always better when we can just have conversation like that and let it go and no one has to force anything. It's easy.
right.
Well, as I
Alright.
said, if you guys need me for anything, that's fine.
Yeah. All right.
good.
All right,
Thank
brother.
you so much. I
All right, man. We'll
pop
be in
off.
touch.
I have to hop off. I have to go check on my cat. So there you
Yeah,
go.
I got to go feed my
I've
critters,
had
too.
all of them fucking crawling around the entire
right, Joe.
show, which is
All
why
right,
I've been
Tim.
kinda
Thanks
putting
so
my head
much.
down and laughing.
All right,
Yeah.
brother.
All right.
Thanks, man.
See ya.
Later, guys.
Raise your horns high.